Be frank. Franklin, be frank. Don't. Ed can take it.
Why
I know
don't
you
you?
can, Ed.
Let's wait about 30 more seconds for things to spin up the right way on the live stuff.
Yeah, wait for cloud time, as we say in consulting.
And
It's like, oh, it hasn't come in yet? That's cloud time. Give it 24 hours.
okay. Well, that's what they used to do on when you put new people in Microsoft 365 back in the day. It was like that could take up to 48 hours for the new ID to come in. It's like what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's because of liability. If you tell them it's an hour and it's an hour and 3 minutes, now you're in trouble. But if you tell them it's 48 hours and it shows up 5 hours, then you're a genius. So,
I
Well,
have to. I learned an incredible lesson when I was commuting to New York. Right, I'm on the train, the Amtrak, and we get into whatever station it was, and then we're stuck where there's a problem, whatever. And finally, they get us fixed like an hour later, and we start pulling out, and then they stop us, right? And you look across, and you see that I was like on the 8 o'clock train. The 9 o'clock train had pulled into the station. So they let the 9 o'clock train actually let everyone off. You get everyone on, and then they leave, right? So because it doesn't matter, we're already late, right? So if we're late by an hour 15, it doesn't matter. But the one that came in at 9 o'clock, they wanted to keep that on time,
oh,
right?
that's hilarious.
Makes
Yeah.
sense, right?
So did you change trains?
Yeah, I ran across to the other one.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I would have done. Yeah. Perfect.
All right, we can get started there, Eddie.
crap. Hold on. I'm bringing up my window, the stuff I want to show you guys. I'm just trying to put it on the right window. Actually, I'll take the SteamYard, put over there.
I
So
don't
I
even
can
know how to let him share. Do you, Brody?
share.
Let's see here.
I don't want to share right away. So in the background, figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I know how to
I am
remove
I
it.
am I am of the mindset of figuring stuff out here lately.
Yeah, man.
All right, 5 seconds silence. Let's get it rocking and rolling. Recorded August 10th, 2022. Good evening, Brody. Good evening, Franklin. Rod's a no-show. Where is speaker 25?
Where's Rod?
He's doing speaker 25 sort of work.
Ah,
He actually might be dropping in because he's giving a lecture right now at where's it at? He's at Tech Mentor.
oh, they
So
doing that again. Okay.
yeah. So he's actually talking right now. He said he's going to possibly drop in on us during the middle of his class, which would be cool.
Okay.
So if we see him come in and we start, about to let him on immediately from there.
Okay.
He's
To our
nice.
listeners, I know you guys, girls and members and supporters are waiting with bated breath to see who our guest is. This is a just host-based podcast this time around. We do have a line of guests that are going to pick back up next week, but this is the time to prove that we don't just talk about it. We're actually in the trenches and getting frustrated, like all of our listeners and practitioners, because I've had something that's been beating my butt for the last week.
Brody's been mixing music or something like that. I've been on vacation, so you're the only one really in the trenches right now.
I'm
So go
also
ahead.
working, especially
I'm,
today. Go ahead, Edward.
Aren't,
I'm,
aren't you
Yeah,
like making music for some wedding that you're going
I
to or
am.
something like
It's
that?
on Friday. And Matt, if you ever watch this, you've no idea how many hours I've put into this. Okay, so you're gonna love this mix, or I am never gonna talk to you
Are,
again
are
because
we going to be able to hear?
uh,
Are we going to be able to hear
no,
it, or will that
it's
be a?
it's an hour and a half. No, it's at a private show. I don't think it's being live streamed,
but
and that
but
would be a lot of pressure. So I'm not
be,
gonna do it. I'll record
be
it. Maybe I'll record it one day. Yeah.
putting playlists, music. People think, oh, you just because it's so easy to get to it.
Yeah.
But
It's not.
I've seen bad playlists where people won't come on the floor. They
Yeah,
won't
and
dance. I'm like,
yeah, man. And when it's electronic music and you have to BPM match it, and I don't sync, I do it all manual, and I have a flow how I want the evening to go, especially at the end. I'm gonna right up there. And
We
yeah,
need to
it's
have
hard.
like after you do this, we're going to have an hour and a half on our Twitch channel of you going through that.
scratching on the ones and twos.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll
Spit
pick
some
one night that
rhyme.
everybody's going to be around drinking, eating dinner, whatever, and can enjoy it, dance to
Hmm.
it. Then
Hmm.
then we'll do that.
And
Okay.
if it's good, I'll take it and use it. resell it. Hey,
Resell other people's music that somebody else mixed. Yeah, there's no legality issues there. Yeah.
well, ask Spotify. So no.
All right. So what's been
First of all,
getting you down at work?
First of all, Franklin, why did I not know you were on vacation?
Yeah, Franklin.
Yeah, you were AWOL.
I'm not on vacation. I'm just kidding.
No, you
I'm
were
still
on vacation.
When?
When you just said you had been on vacation.
Yeah.
I was kidding. Yeah, I've actually been working.
Okay.
Kidding.
Don't lie to our viewers and listeners, Franklin.
Yeah, don't backtrack.
I lie to everyone, so they just join the club. All right. Here's a question for you. Here is a question for you. I used to always ask this question in a training class, and so here you go. Is it ever okay to lie to your spouse?
Yes.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, self-preservation is a must. Yeah, I'm not getting
this is where I start. This is where I start the day of the training classes. I always ask a question that gets people thinking. Right.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Is it ever so like? Then everybody says, "Oh no, whatever." And I say, "Okay, this one time I went to the doctor and my little heart test thing didn't pan out." He says, the doctor says 99.9% of the time it's just our machine, but you got to go take the stress test, right?
Mm-hmm.
He orders me up the little thing you stick under your tongue and all that stuff, and I go home and I don't tell my wife, right?
Now you can see that because you want to worry her, but then you're also not being totally transparent in your health.
Well, so. he's compounded. I know where this is going. Frank's been married too long for this. I know exactly where this is going.
So here's the next piece of information you need to know. She was pregnant with our first kid at the time.
Okay. He doesn't want to put undue stress.
Before you would be like, okay, yeah, you should tell her. But now you're like, first kid pregnant. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't put her under that additional stress, right?
No, I would have told. I mean, you got to let her make the decision whether she want to keep having babies by you. You got a bum ticker, man. Your oil light come on all of a sudden.
So of course the entire class, because I'd have a co-instructor there. The entire class is like, I can't believe Frank didn't tell his wife that or whatever. And my co-instructor would be like, yeah, he's a terrible person, all this stuff. And so then the next day, I'm like, okay, Carl, his name was Carl. Tell your story about it. So he goes, okay, so he was, I think it was his first or second kid. His wife goes in and doing the diabetes or blood test, right? And the doctor says to her, did you eat anything? And she said, yes. And then the doctor said, well, you're not supposed to eat anything. And she said, you never told me that, right, Carl? And he looked at her and said, nope, never heard it at all, knowing the entire time he heard it, right? And then when the doctor left the room, he fessed up to it. So he thinks that it's okay to lie to your wife just as long as, like, within inside a 2-minute period, you come clean about it. What about that one? Should he actually have been honest in saying, yes, they did tell us? What do you think?
No. My wife's like, you hate this dress, don't you? And I call myself being joking and like, oh my God, it's horrible. I hope I didn't pay for it.
So I learned a lot from you old guys today.
So still the class would turn against me and say, yes, we agree with Carl, just as long as you tell within inside a minute or two that you're joking or you're just making the situation easier, all that fun stuff, that it's okay. So the class would still turn against me on that.
I think that we make things like withholding information or something like that. We have a black and white perspective of it. Either you lie or you don't. But you have to look at everything's with context.
Yes.
Right. Everything's in context.
Yes. It's not blanket statements.
Yeah. I like to tell people I'm not a liar. I'm a habitual embellisher. I solved this problem in 2 seconds, right? When it took me
Yeah.
2 months, right?
Yeah.
But to
Well,
I
yeah,
look.
I mean, I did not tell her because I did not want her to stress out while she was pregnant. If she was not pregnant, I would have told her it's no big deal. The heart test came back, everything was fine, right? If the doctor said, hey, you could fall over any minute, I might have actually said something different,
I hope you would
but
have. Yes. Yeah.
the bottom line is that 99.99% of the time it's nothing, and I didn't want to stress her out. So I still think I did the right thing, no matter what every single one of my class
Have you told her
students
since
actually
then?
said. Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well then.
Because if you didn't, I was gonna call and tell her.
You-
I'm gonna rat you out. That's my buddy. I'm like, I don't know if you know he got a bad oil pump.
yeah.
I tested out fine. I tested out fine. So
Okay. All
it's
right.
good.
Yeah. I give you a joke, and we'll get into the topics today. Want to keep it a short show. You know, it's when someone tells a deliberate set of what they believe or information or facts for the purpose of the deception that benefits them, then I got a problem. But because if not saying the complete truth, I lie every day. Edward, did you take the trash to the street? Yeah, I took it. Yeah. Did you I threw something on my wife's away. So it was some food she wasn't quite finished with, and she had it on the counter. I don't know why I thought she was done. I threw it in the trash. And she said, Edward, did you see the rest of my sandwich? I was like, what sandwich? You ate it, didn't you? I said, no, I didn't eat it. You ate it. I said, I didn't eat it. What'd you do with it? I didn't eat it. And so it cost me a whole new sandwich and something else, right? And it was like, well, if you just told me you mistakenly threw it in the trash, I'd have been okay with it. But you lied. I'm like, I didn't lie. I just
I
didn't.
don't think you lied there. No, you answered the question.
I didn't answer the subpoena. I didn't come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
One more. I give you a funny.
Okay.
Both of my boys are older, so this is 15 years ago, and they were at it about something. They were like, Dad, which one of us is your favorite? And I said, Brian said, you am I your favorite son? I was like, no. And Chris, my oldest boy, see, I told you I'm his favorite son. I said, you aren't either. Your brother is. You just said he wasn't. And then them kept on for a minute. And it took them about 15 minutes. They came back. We have another brother somewhere? And that caught my wife's attention. We I said, no, no, no,
Sorry.
no, 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 no. But no, don't be deceitful. You know, um, just everybody. So I would have to say I look at the cause and effect and the down road ramifications. I would have said something and tell her not to worry. Then it really could have been something. And then you go, you didn't think to tell me? You didn't think that was important? That's a whole can of worms. I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
Oh, I can handle it. Rah, 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 rah. I'm like, oh. And being married is, do you want to be married or do you want to be right?
Yeah.
I think I'll be
Wise
married.
words. Wise words.
And so my wife and I very rarely argue about anything. We can disagree, but we're at this point like, what are we upset about? She's like, I don't remember. You want to go have a drink? Sure.
There you go.
How you doing anyway? Brody, has your immersion into supporting Sentinel evolution come along? Are you learning up?
I am immersing myself in Sentinel, yes. Although due to scheduling, I haven't really got into Rod's excellent must-learn KQL course yet. I've only been piecemeal investigating the things I need for right now. But I can talk the talk. I know the stuff that they want to accomplish, and they're like asking me for advice. I'm like, oh, you probably want to alert on this, or you probably want to suppress that, or you probably want to use watch lists to accomplish that particular thing. And I'm getting it, right? There's things I need to brush up on, certainly. Like
Me too.
like which tables to reference in KQL for X, Y, Z, and then generating incidents and automation on that, and everything, and then finding out how like your Azure policy, this customer, their Azure policy level controls are actually live with the subscription owners, and they don't actually have those permissions, and so we figured out like who was able to actually add a new watch list based on permissions within Azure. So I've been diving into like what roles you need to accomplish X, Y, or Z. And turns out this one workspace was locked. And then we had to like go up the chain, find someone with roles. Some learn as you kind of get into things and investigate and learn on the fly. That's how I learn, right? It's not sit down and learn it and then do it. It's I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't quite know what I'm doing, and you get in the trenches and then you figure it out, and then based on your experiences, now you know more. So it's been fun. Yeah.
You know, since you have all this downtime, I like to point out you are 2 exams behind Edward.
I don't have downtime. I don't know where
Just
you think I
2?
have downtime. So I'm not doing the AZ
AZ
104. I don't care.
104.
No, I'm not
He's got to
doing
get
it.
the SC 100.
Yeah, I'll do that in the
He's-
fall. I'll do that when the weather turns. Yeah, but
Oh,
I don't have
that'll help
downtime. I'm
your
very
score.
busy. I'm in
Well,
financial services industry Canada region, and people are knocking at the door to get me on. I just had a call today where they're like, "Hey, you want to get on this massive 3-year digital transformation project with a project manager that you love?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Had a great conversation. They want me. Great.
What
Other
does this
banks
have
are.
to do with you blowing off the exams? I don't get this.
I don't do exams in the summer. I'm outside. I got my golf swing. Oh man,
so
I got the coiling in my lower spine. I finally
No, but
got it. I can
this
finally
new gig
reproduce
that
it.
you're talking about in the financial
Oh,
industry, you
oh
bring
yeah.
all that up when we're talking about exams, just to
Well,
change
I
the
don't write
subject, or
exams.
what?
I don't write exams in the summer. It's a rule because summer's short in Canada. Okay, we have all of a sudden it's going to be igloos and polar bears here in a couple months, and you know it's going to be
You'll be
tough.
skiing, so just stop it.
I don't ski every day. Skiing's expensive now, man. Ski industry,
skiing
it is
expensive.
outrageous expensive. It used to be a
Seriously
half
expensive.
day at Lake Louise used to be $45 when I worked there. $45 for a half day. You could roll in 12:30 spring, not a big deal. Get some beers, everything's fine. And now it's like, oh, you want like a half day at the ski hill, $95. You want a full day at the ski hill, $150.
Yeah.
Whistler's charging like $250 for a day pass, and they could increase that amount based on utilization. Like I can't afford that, and I love to ski. Like
It sounds like you need to start your training on DevSecOps and
so
pull
I
that
can
money in, so
make the
you can
money. Yeah,
go
totally. I
skiing.
mean, yeah, that or more threat protection. Anything. I love security. It's great. Yes.
All right, Edward, what are you struggling with? So Brody can
Oh,
help you.
I want to rant too, by the way. So you go, Ed, and then I'll help you help me,
You know,
hopefully, because it's an MDCA question.
to be honest, I got the cup. I didn't do every module in the KQL. The ones I knew I skipped, but I still wanted my cup. So that's
So you
my moment of
lied
honesty.
on your self-assessment?
I lied to I lied to Rod because I
You lied
wanted
to
him
Rod.
I feel bad, Rod. I'm sorry. I didn't do the whole course, man, but I meant to. I'll go back through.
He's revoking your certificate.
Yeah. Yeah, which is probably why I never got it, because he went through all the modules. You skipped 4 of them, man.
Yeah,
I didn't do
he
that.
tracked your public IP to see how much time you spent on each page. He's like,
I
no,
can't.
you didn't read this. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me. So a couple things. Learning Sentinel in itself is not hard. Okay. It's a very specific set of operational parameters. Either the software and the feature set operates the software, the feature sets, and the solution operate as advertised, or then you start looking at deviation. What I've been struggling with helping customers lately, because it seems like there are no CSAs left, and the ones that are really good are so quadruple, quintuple, committed. They don't have any bandwidth. So if it rolls back. So here's the thing that is made me. I've never spent so much time in the command line as I have in Linux, Cisco, and all these things, because it's the other technologies, as well as doing something similar to what you have, Brody. You had to figure out an Azure permissioning and rights inheritance problem. So you had to take Azure policy, understand what Azure policy does on a higher level, how they're using it, how they're enforcing it, and scratch your head, because my immediate answer was, it needs to be a Sentinel contributor. but that's not
Right.
right.
That's what we thought too. We thought it was Sentinel
That's
contributor, but it's higher up because it's being contained in the workspace, and they classify the workspace as containing classified or PII or whatever it is, right? Because it contains IP addresses, external and internal IP addresses, which are inherently confidential. So it was locked, and yeah, just who owns the tenant, and this is a government agency in the States, obviously can't say anything, and they have a higher power that manages everything, and they only have so much power down here. Sentinel contributor was the leading theory for multiple minutes until we realized that wasn't the case. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, it will probably be one of the blogs that I write permissioning in it.
great blogs.
I have to now.
You have to now. Okay.
Yeah, well,
So
I need to
SC300,
have
blog.
yeah.
SC300 when it first came out did not really talk about Azure permissioning, which you were talking about. Now you think under identity and access management it would. So the latest update to SC300 when they went through the job task analysis or whatever, that did get put in. So now that's part of SC300 to understanding everything that you're talking about from the Azure resource permissioning, Azure roles versus Azure AD roles.
Okay.
So there is updated content for that.
Good to know.
I saw an interesting website about a year ago. I wish I'd have bookmarked it. I've Googled it, Binged it, DuckDuckGo'd it, everything. I can't Yahoo'd, and I cannot find it.
Did you ask Jeeves?
Oh, that's Jeeves. That's Siri. It had it had an interface that is like a comparison shopping. So one of the things were Azure Permissions and Azure AD, right? Tenant, Azure AD, and it told you when you put the comparison in what the differences were. So you could put up to 6 in there. Say, okay, what's the difference between GA, a person that has this, and that, and the red stuff would be in it. I cannot find that
Oh,
website.
nice. That would be so handy. That'd be so
Oh yeah,
handy. Because even
Yeah,
GA doesn't have everything by
but
design.
yeah, but the docs actually has a lot of that information. I don't know if it has side by side comparison, but
Sounds like
also
Edward's
this.
describing an interactive site where you can like move your balloons around, and then it makes an animation. And as someone who's very visual, I could appreciate that.
and I think the person that was creating it was also making it sort of like an access control list type feature, meaning if you have this and that, this is your cumulative permissions to be able to do this at the bottom, right? So, and you could set the standard, like on the far right, you could put global admin, and I forget other, and then it used to filter down like this until, man, I'm gonna find that now. I'm gonna search
Find
for it.
that
I gotta
site,
go look
Edward. I
for it.
want that
So the
site.
other
That
thing
sounds
is
great. Yeah.
the acquisition that Microsoft did, and they just stuck it in the renamed Azure Identity products.
Risk IQ, no,
Risk
Cloud
IQ,
Knox,
Cloud Knox.
Cloud
Cloud
Knox,
Knox.
Cloud Knox.
So
A
basically,
seam.
what they were doing was actually that sort of analysis of Azure roles, and then telling you who's over permission, who's not using the roles, or who's using the permissions of roles that they're assigned to, and so on. So I wonder if you can get some of that same information from there in comparison.
It's actually a good call.
You know what? Sometimes Frank's a genius.
Yeah,
I think
use
the
the
person,
Microsoft tools for the Microsoft things. Yeah.
I think the person who owned that site was his personal tech blog, and he was at Cloud Knox before they got acquired. So I'm
That
gonna go
makes
search the
sense.
name and see if that was the guy that did it. Oh,
Internet sleuth. Here we go.
let me just write this down because I'm old.
Shout
I
out to the
can't
Cloud
remember.
Knox team. Come on our show. We'd love to have you.
I can
They've
get
been
him on.
here.
Oh,
They've
you
been
know
here.
what? What's the name is coming over?
Yeah, he's been on here before. That's how we knew
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Oh,
We've had
maybe I
Risk
missed that
IQ
one.
and Cloud Knox. So where I was going with this is this.
Yes.
When you do Azure Sentinel, you're not an Azure Sentinel expert per se exclusively. You are as the perception is, you are a SIM expert, a SOAR expert, and also an integration expert. Because I am super frustrated with the way that we contribute and maintain, not me, Microsoft puts their content in there, but there's really no accountable support matrix for it. I'm playing with this matrix out of frustration and getting an average time between data connectors and any of the Git content that's being attributed. It's just it's antiquated. So I think everyone knows I was helping someone out and I'm trying to get their uh, Zscaler private access, which is their endpoint product proxy, to come in, right? All the stuff on the client side is great. It's the parsers, the ASM stuff inside Sentinel that they can't get to work. And so they open a support ticket and it's still being escalated. They can't get it to work. The people that contributed to the things, like, why would you put this out there? Now the Zscaler works. That's just Ceph, right? But this thing will not work because it will, still to this day, it will not create that custom log table. And I've run this by, you know, some of the smartest guys over on the Sentinel team, the GBBs, and they're like, yeah, this Parser to whomever worked it, being charitable, it's no, I don't see how this would ever have worked. I've yet to find someone who has successfully deployed the ZPA one out of solution. The Zscaler is fine. There was a couple of nuances on there where you have to modify a couple of conf files, but that was easy. I've been in, here's what's kicking my butt. So, customer has McAfee EPO. And if you go to the Content Hub, there is a solution that you want to click and deploy. It then tells you, once you have done this, you still need to go back and configure your log collector. Okay, syslog. Got everything going, got back into the portal, looking over the shoulder inside the EPO portal, which I hadn't seen in decades. How is McAfee still in business? But anyway, so we're going through it, and so you see the event folder, and I'm go, okay, check 6514. 6514. And syslog over TLS/SLSL. I said, oh, okay. Well, it allowed me to change it in the EPO portal to 514, which their syslog collector, their log collector is working. We can see Ceph, we can see syslog. We made sure there's no data table duplication because they run them on the same box.
Okay.
Won't work. So I go in and do the conf file, put in the TCP, blah, 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 6514. Netstat is listening. TCP dump, everything's good. Their firewall guys like any man, it's a private endpoint. We're allowing all the stuff that go into the log collector. They don't public expose any IP addresses. Everything's a private endpoint. It's a choke point, right? Still couldn't work. Like, get on the website, go through everything, And the worst part about this, I sort of knew the answer at the very beginning of this, and I made assumptions rather than get down into it. It cannot be changed. It only, McAfee EPO will only send logs over our syslog or syslog ng with TLS enabled. No big deal, right? How many of you guys have done it on this call? It's hard. And it's so convoluted. You got to create a certificate server, a certificate authority. You have to generate the sending keys on one side, the host keys on one side. You have to go modify this stuff. And then I say, ooh, out of my water. Y'all need to open support case. So while they're doing it because the time is of the essence, I'm trying to learn it on my own. I said, well, it's a reusable skill.
Sure.
So I go to my lab and I started going through it. I'm like, oh my God. So the Microsoft guy comes back and say, okay, we can help you guys out once you stand up a new log collector. Why? Well, we could run it on the one that's actually working, but if this blows up, it takes down the whole collector. If that TLS stops working, it'll take down the whole connector, the 514 that's unencrypted, UDP and TCP. I'm like, whoa, don't do that. We'll stand up a separate log collector just for this. And then I went back and I said, I told the customer, well, I asked the customer, why are you even bringing these logs in? So when you see the stuff, you're like, files share scan, this right here scan, that files, it's just information, right? And I'm like, why do you need these logs? Well, we just wanted to bring them in. I was like, well, there are no detections for this. And there are no hunting queries for it. So I don't know if that's been updated, but I'm like, why bring in logs if you don't have anything that you can pivot against the logs? You can't actively hunt against it. There are no analytics for it. Hold on, I stand corrected. There's one now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to share my screen with it. So I was going to do it in my lab, even though I don't have it. But trying to set up TLS over R syslog is not for the faint of heart. So I stand corrected. In the McAfee ePOSIT Orchestrator, the solution has been updated. There are 14 analytic rules. There's a data connector. There are 10 hunting queries. There's a parser, and then there's a +1 inside the solution. What's the +1? A workbook. So if I click on it and I go to install, and no, I'm not sharing
You want to
anything
share
to
your
our list.
screen?
I can share it. How do I do it?
Is there a button that says share at the bottom?
Mute, share. Yeah. Who knew?
What was their answer, by the way, while you're bringing that up? Why did they want to capture all those logs? Was it for compliance reasons and they needed to capture all of them, or they had no real good answer?
They had no answer other than it's generating logs and we want to get the logs.
Yeah, CISO says we need logs to be collected somewhere, and that's what we're doing. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm telling them, is it worth the effort? And if it is, stand it up on a separate one, because if you don't and it blows up, you have 23 other sources coming into that. You're gonna blow them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I told him, I consulted him, stand up a separate log collector. It doesn't have to be max power. It's going to be specifically for this. Sentinel can recognize the log collector coming in. You can have multiple coming in, and then go through a 90-day period to say this has no value, and we haven't done anything against it, and you don't have a regulatory compliance need that says you need those logs. Now they've consumed all the other Microsoft stuff, but the one thing that they have in the McAfee thing that they want, MDE, or I'm sorry, Microsoft, tell me if I'm wrong on this. Microsoft doesn't have an active antivirus scanning solution for file servers.
I don't know if that statement's interesting. So is the file server hosted on a Windows OS, or is it like a NAS or an NFS share? Or just a straight up file share from bare metal?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But that's a good observation, because I came to them and said, well, you guys are in a major evolution of getting everything off premise into SPO and Azure storage. Why do you need to scan this stuff? You're moving this stuff away. At the same time, you're moving away from Box to OneDrive. Nobody knows. Nobody wants to stand up and say, well, they've never done it before either. In their previous SIM, they didn't even do it. They never brought logs in. So I'm like, why now? But so if you can see my screen, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, man.
All right. So if you go through this is a solution in the Content Hub. If I go back one, I typed in McAfee, you get this, and it says install. So for those listeners and watchers out there, if you haven't gone through this is pretty much the operational methodology of any of the solutions, right? They vary, but you go, hey, I want to use this plan. That's misleading. Like, what plan is this? Should just say solution. You click create, you go through, and you just, you add the workspaces, you do all this. Now, here's the thing that eats you up. The parser is actually not bad. Whoever wrote the parser for the EPO is not bad. It's really good. But when you go to the data connector, it tells you this solution installs the data connector, allows the ingest, blah, 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 through the syslog. I installing solution, configure and enable the data connector by finding the guidance in the managed solution view. This solution installs a parser that transforms ingested data. The transform logs can be accessed using the McAfee EPO function. So the function is not hard to create either. You copy it from the Git, you paste it into the log editor, you save as a function, you name the function the same name as the alias, and it creates itself in 15 minutes. Okay, easy peasy. Workbooks. The workbook, whoever wrote it, looks pretty robust. It looks at a subset of items, and it visualizes those. And you're saying, well, what items? Well, the items are based on the analytics here. These are the things that's passing down. Firewall disabled. Customer uses MDE and Defender. File added to exceptions. Multiple threats on the same host. I'm like, you guys already do this with MDE and TVM. Update fail. And now this is not a huge footprint. They don't have a lot of file servers. I said, okay, if you want what you want, They also have some hunting queries in here now. So you can look at it and see that the that the analytics are in line to the hunting query. So if you see the top one, agent handler down, error sending alerts, blah, blah, blah. The hunting queries is, agent errors, applications blockage contained. So they're sort of in line. Still no problem. Do I want to deploy this in my environment? Yeah, I'll do it in my lab. So you go create, validation passed. It's going to do what it's going to do. Come on. All right. And nobody needs to see my number. Well, nobody cares about it. It's just my lab. All right.
Screenshot.
No problem. So you go through, it's there. So remember, we read you still need to go back to the collector and configure it. Right? I was like, all right, all right, all right. So I go back home. I go to Sentinel. I go to the workspace. I go to the data connectors. I come down. Now it should be there. There it is. Right? So now the data connector is created by a solution. Previous, when you don't run the solution, that doesn't show up in the data connectors. So the solutions will populate the data connector with the name in the solution. So it's deployed. So I said, okay, still no problem. The provider's McAfee disconnected. Now here's the thing. Syslog McAfee EPO. So now we know the data types and the log types. You open that connector page, and this when everything goes off the rails. It says install agent on the Linux machine. Log collector is already up. Syslog is working. But you have to create this parser. I'm sorry, this function. So you can capture everything into to comment it out. You paste it. Matter of fact, while I'm here, I do it. You grab all of this, maybe, and everything. Copy. Go back here. And I only know this because I've done it already, so I know what they're telling me to do. You need to go to logs. Once you're inside Microsoft Sentinel operational plane, go to logs. Once you're in the logs, you open up a query tab and you paste the content from the get that connector. Can I do Control V? It didn't do it. Control C, Control V. All right, all that's in there. I think that's right. Yes, that's everything. All right, so once you have that, then you don't run it because it's going to throw an error because that custom log table doesn't exist. This function is supposed to create it. So when you go up, you do save as a function, and you give it a function name. Let's call it
I haven't done this before.
EPO, and then you want to come down and give it a category name, which is fancy talk for the alias of it. You can just go EPO. It didn't work the first time. Like, Ed, you didn't read the instructions. What the instructions say, Ed? So I hit cancel, click OK, and you go back up. You have to name it EPO event. The function has to have a very specific name or it will not do it. So I took that, I copied it, then I did it again. I went back to save as a function, and then I just did this. So now it's in there. And then you make the alias, which is, I don't know why they call it legacy category. There you go. No spaces, of course.
Trailing
And then you
space.
save. No trailing spaces. And they said this function name already exists. You just hit replace. That's actually in the solution description. That if you uninstall it, which this means I must have deployed it in my lab and then uninstalled it. And when you uninstall a solution, you have to manually go into everything it deployed and remove it manually.
Right? I've got a few things to say here. Number one, the SC200 course update and labs updates has a new section talking about async parsers, and it will actually walk you through going through and doing this sort of creating the function and so on and creating the parser. So this, not this specific function, but how you do this is actually in the updated SC200 courseware. Now, there is one thing that's kind of annoying. If you go to analytics, I'm sorry, go to analytics down there on the left side, and click any one of them. And if you select export at the top, you're going to see that this is going to send it out in a JSON file. Now, we had a guest on here that was writing code to be able to import and export the JSON files to utilize something like Azure DevOps to manage your environment. and so this works fine with the analytical rules. But when you start getting to other types, like what you're looking at, like the function, creating the KQL function. There's really no way in the UI to go about doing that. And the code the guest had before was out of date because I could not get it to work. So in the SC200 course, we're actually only pushing the analytical rules because of the fact that there is nothing exposed right now that gives us a clean way, like you can with the analytical rules, to actually push those functions around. And so
Hmm.
that also impacts your repository and pushing that stuff over. So I think that in the future, when they expose that and create the APIs properly for that, and not having to try to PowerShell everything through that our
Hmm.
previous guest was doing, then that additional step that you're seeing with inside solutions right now will go away in the future.
Hmm.
But right now, you have to go about doing that. If you go out and you do the SC200 labs, especially the ASIM parser update, you will actually see all the steps that are involved with doing this.
I hope this doesn't break any rules. I had to go renew the SC200. You know how you get your search for renewal? That's not in there. Not a single question about that.
That
So you have to go through the entire learn path to see it, because if you do the renewal, they send you the link, you get on the website, you do it. That's not in
renewal
there.
the renewal's not going to have it. So if you just go out to learn, when Rod was doing it, he was showing where there's like new modules that he had not completed. But also just go out. The ASIM stuff, I actually had to move that later with inside learning module 7 because it is kind of complicated
Mhm.
to go through. So I kind of felt that was heavy to begin that learning path with.
Mhm.
But you really understand it more if you go out and you just do the labs from it that's are available on GitHub. It's not going to cost you anything if you have a Sentinel environment set up to put the function out there and move forward. But
Yeah.
I think that as this matures in the repository side and things that they're going to have in there, you're not going to have to go through that with solutions.
Yeah. I think that I know it's goodwill. Git is a community, open source community, like, environment where people are contributing their own time, their own skill set, their knowledge, and they're putting it in there. That's good. I don't want anybody, to get the impression that I'm not grateful for the work that they've done. But there need to be a little bit of rule that you can't let your thing be out of date more than 3 months. Whatever thing you create in there can be more than 3 months. Even if it's nothing but a comment that says no updates, right? Let someone know that you are still actively doing this, because as Rod and I talked about, the Git is relying on customers who can see that it's broken and then click submit or click the issue, so that then the contributor knows. Even when you do that, they're not reading it.
So, I mean, this is not a get problem. This is not them being out of date. This is the fact that there's no clean way for them to have a solution that's going to automatically create that
No, yeah,
KQL function for you.
two things. Now the function does work. So watch this. So it says it takes, if we
The
go back.
manual process you just went through, I
Mhm.
think will be resolved in time as they open that up to be able to create
Oh, okay.
functions through code.
Cool. That's good.
Now for our listeners to say, well, Ed, you say the function there. How do you know? So you go to logs, click functions, you go to, it's a workspace function, and you come down. You can see in my lab, I got a lot of these already deployed. But if you come down, oh, I was playing with the ZPA stuff, even though I have it. Where is it? What will we call that? McAfee EPO event. So what I did is I say, okay, make sure you didn't have any spaces and blah blah blah. I I load the function code and I look at it across two different things. What I cut and pasted from, and make sure it's okay. And then out of giggles, I decided to just click run, and it at least creates the custom log table without first having to have the syslog inject data into the table before it manifests. It's
All right, so
there.
let me see the creation of the table
So that custom log,
in the code in the code.
see, the function actually does it. And I'm staring at my screen. My listeners looking at my mug. It's somewhere in here.
So
I'll put it in
what
chat.
what I don't think they're doing is that they're not actually creating a real table. They're actually creating a virtual table.
And now you're getting out of my water, because
So
You
So
the
what?
second person said that, and I'm like, I don't understand.
All right. So basically, when you take a look at a virtual table, is something that's returned by KQL or KQL function that you then can access later. Okay. So if you okay, you can go down here. So um, you can create virtual tables. If you go to settings, go to workspace settings, go to yeah, so then you're going to have custom logs. Go there.
Try that. A pain.
So this is, when you're going out creating custom logs, I'm like, I didn't know that KQL could actually create a physical custom log. I didn't think it could do that, but here I could see through the UI, um, you can actually, they'll go out and create this custom log table for you. Most of them end up with the CL name on the end of it.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm like, I didn't know not Azure, KQL functions would actually create the custom log. They will create a virtual table. So when you run it, it's actually available in memory for you then to go ahead and query forward. And there's a lot of optimization around this. So if you go back to logs for a second, I want to point this out to people. Go back to functions. So with inside the workspace functions, go ahead and all of those asym and further down, all of those have meanings, like the IM side, and so on. So those 2-letter prefixes or 3-letter prefixes actually have a meaning about what they're used for and how they're defined and who's defining them and so on. So once again, I would refer you to the SC200 Learn module on this to talk about why it's IM and why it's asym and LLM and all that fun stuff. It will actually go over that and explain how that's being set up
Mhm.
for you. Um, just I saw that on the screen. I wanted to point that out.
Yep. So I deviated a little bit and went down a red herring path. The functions, the custom log, that's not the problem with this particular connector. The problem with it is that when you go back to the data connector, right, and you go to EPO and McAfee, you click here, you open the data connector page, it says it's syslog. It tells you, hey, apply the configuration, what data you want in, blah, 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 apply the configuration here, and you can go here. But number 3, configure the policy orchestrator to forward events to your syslog server. Doesn't say anything about syslog over TLS right there. You click. And I'm like, I'm on the McAfee page. I keep forgetting they've been passed around. So this is Trellix. So when you go through here, the default is 6514. You cannot change it. There's no registry hack. You have to do it that way. And so I'm like, well, I've never set up syslog uh, over TLS or syslog, r syslog or syslog ng. So I started Googling, binging, Microsoft Shop. Hey, how did we do it? Right. So this piece was easy. The customer got this done in 6 minutes. They were done. Right. They already, you click a new server, creates a virtual little VM on the EPO server type. Um, you select syslog server. They use IP address because the machine is in Azure and then they want that long Azure name and they're not public DNS anyway. So they put the IP address, the port number, right? When you do this and deploy it, it should create an entry in the R6 log conf file that says listen on 6514. Why won't it do it? Because the logic says you can't do that because you don't have TLS enabled and you don't have the certs. You don't have the keys on it.
Right.
And that's what the problem is. So I said, okay, no problem. You go in and I'm gonna bing it, well, just go. And I just went in how to deploy TLS on SYS or log, syslog, right? And everybody has it. So it's not like it's a new thing. So everything from IBM, everybody does it. So it'll say, okay, people must be able to do it. But when you do it, everybody from QRadar to whomever else has it still says the same thing. You have to go through this Look at this. You need a self-signed SAN certificate or a public root certificate. You need to create a self-signing request,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And all of them say the same thing. No matter what SIM vendor you're using, this is the step. Man, I'm in here trying to do all this stuff and do this and do this and do this. I'm like, hold up. And then you have to make sure the PKCS certificate it is hyper convoluted right now.
This is not a Sentinel thing. This is
It's not it is the
it,
integration piece.
it's their side. It's I forget, McAfee is
Hmm.
not able to change the port that the connector piece is expecting to receive on, or you can receive it, but this is really configuring. So this is just configuring TLS for syslog.
Yes, and so there are numerous things, and I'm like, I can battle my way through this, right? I'm a technologist. I've had harder problems to learn something, right? But when the support team says you can put it on the same syslog server, you better not, because if this breaks, it takes down the entire log collector.
What if you
Right.
containerize it?
Well, then that's the same thing as creating another VM. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Just
I guess
another
it
VM.
would, but you're at least saving yourself having to create a whole new VM for it if you're just carving out a spot on the existing one, if
uh,
you could do that.
well, the syslog container that's deployed, the syslog collector deployed is not containerized. So if it was
Yeah.
hosted in a container, I could containerize. I could isolate it, right, and shield it. But I hope they follow this and just say, hey, go do this. So I don't have access to my log collector from my
But this same
office.
sort of thing can be used for not only McAfee but for whatever else. So it should be
Hmm.
in the docs under the syslog side
Hmm.
of the connector. So that's
Hmm.
not in the docs for that.
It's not, and all the docs do is forward you back to the. Well, it is in a docs. The docs just sends you to a page that says if you need to do this, you need to download this package, you need to have this level of Python. You put it all in. That's okay. I say I can do that. But my spider sense is tingling, saying that if something goes wrong with this, no, it won't. It won't fail within its own operational parameters. It'll fail your whole collector. I'm
Not
like,
ideal. Not ideal.
not ideal. And I started looking at the
But
conf file.
that makes sense. I mean that it would do that.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I,
If
I'm
the
like,
line net of the 32 things you're collecting logs from requires it, then
which
yeah.
is working perfectly.
Yeah.
All the stuff's coming in.
Yeah.
They got the DCRs correct. They got they went in to make sure because they're running Ceph and syslog on the same server. They're not doing data duplication. But to introduce this into a production environment, and it can work, but if it goes wary for any one thing, it shuts down the entire communication stream, whether it's TCP, UDP, or whatever else. Nah, I'm let you guys do run with that. Go open a support ticket and go do that right there, right? Now I'm going to do it in my lab because I think it's knowledge is worth learning how to
Yeah.
do that once,
Yeah.
right? I've never set up a certificate authority or generated certs on a Linux machine. On Windows, it's like click, 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 click,
Yeah.
click. You go to
It's not too bad.
Komodo, you go somewhere else, you can grab you a publicly signed CA. You're good to go, right? A lot of
Yeah.
places give them to you for free. Doing this on Linux, I admit it. This is my first time doing it, and it's not. Now, I bet if I was a Linux admin with years of experience, like man, I can get this done in an hour,
I just pull up a YouTube video.
and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Get in the YouTube video. So that was my little thing.
Sweet.
I'm learning a lot. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
man. Yeah.
I have 3 Linux boxes stood up. I've upgraded a few other things. I know how to get around in VMware now from the command line because once you learn, I've been out of it so long since I don't route switch. But once
Yeah.
you get used to just the textual context of where you interact with something, it all comes back.
Right. Yeah, totally. It happens with me too.
Yeah.
If we're finishing up sharing super quick, I've got a super quick story that's related to yours. We're doing kind of a similar thing. We're setting up a log collector for MDCA for a customer, and it's on a Red Hat Linux box, and we just install. We're getting Docker installed. We're going to containerize a log collector. I've never actually done that before. I've never actually set that up before because anytime I've engaged with the customer, all they wanted was the MDE integration
MDA,
where
MDAC. I'm trying to figure that one out.
MD, did I say AC?
Yeah.
MDCA, Defender for Cloud
MCAS.
Applications. You
Oh,
got it.
okay.
MCAS.
You know what I've seen in the product team emails lately? Product team people dropping MDA. Like, oh no, it's MDA. Defender for Cloud Apps is MDA. I'm like, oh really? Okay.
Yep.
And if it comes from
That,
the product team, it's like that's the acronym. Stop it. You know,
I,
it's like people use the D4E. No, that's not Defender for Endpoint. It's
nope.
MDA.
I actually started doing that. So
You
yeah,
started it. Oh, don't do that.
yeah, I'm the
Don't
one
do
that
that.
uses a 4 in there.
Oh my, it's
So,
terrible. It's terrible. So
so
MDA. But anyway,
I
the
get,
whole log collector containerization of setting up is interesting. We ran into some challenges because of uh, first we can't get the repos to download, and we think it's a higher level of networking that this government entity has to go through. We can't hit the internet basically to download the repos, to download Docker and the prereqs, and we just kind of spun in circles for an hour and a half today trying to get that going. But first experience trying to deploy Docker on a Red Hat Linux IaaS machine in order to set it up to perform log collecting to pipe into Defender for Cloud Apps. So it's similar
you
to what
should
you're going through, Edward.
you should have pinged me. I did that 2 years ago.
It's networking though. We couldn't
Yeah.
even ping 8.8.8.8, so you would have logged on midnight, call your network team, right? So, but
Hmm.
I'm going to keep you in mind because when we get that resolved, and if we run into any more struggles, I'd love to ping you on that because I haven't set
The,
it up
the,
yet. I should probably get it up in my own lab because it doesn't seem
yeah.
like it's too hard to do
I
that.
think it's
So
running in mine. The biggest thing is make sure when you generate that API key, you immediately cut and paste it and put it somewhere. Because
yeah,
if you
put it in
can't
the
paste that
folder.
in there, it don't work. Big
Yeah.
shout out to Jared Popperman, who was the MCAS guy at Microsoft, took me on his wing. Uh, I I learned everything about that through him, and it's still running in my environment actually. Um, it doesn't send the raw logs; it sends the alerts, I believe. That's all that's in there, not the raw,
Okay.
just the alerts.
Okay.
Once you can get communication, you're gonna blow through it. It'll take you 22 minutes,
Yeah, it
and
doesn't
you
seem
have
like it's hard. I'm on the Docker site to run the downloads, and then Microsoft's got a pretty in-depth
hmm,
article on setting up the overall log collector. So,
a look.
and they've got their executive and leadership teams are all on Mac OS, and right now MDE, while on those machines, does not support that log transmission of external outbound access. Apparently, it's on the
It's on
don't
the
think this is
roadmap.
NDA. It's on the roadmap. We say
Hmm.
that. Okay. Okay. And it should be right because if we can
Hmm.
grab all those logs from not only or OS X, excuse me, and Mac OS. Sorry, it's Mac OS now, and then also maybe one day from iOS and Android. That's great, right? Then you just have to set up log collector for anything that's not a end user
I,
endpoint.
I've seen it in action already.
Oh,
In the
sweet.
lab.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that would
it
be
is.
handy
It is
because it's so
noisy as
easy to
all get out.
understand.
Yeah,
So easy.
it's like, what is all this gibberish come across? It's nothing but BSD, right? That's what Mac OS is, Frank.
I
BSD.
think I think you're right. It's built
Yeah,
on BSD. Yeah,
BSD. Hmm.
I
And
think you're
so,
right. Don't quote
but
me on that.
once you can get communication, you're gonna blow through it. It's not hard at all. Matter of
Okay,
fact,
sweet.
a little bit of secret. Customer decided I don't want to put it in the cloud. You have to put in a support ticket to allow you to build that container on premise.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that was a hard requirement. They just automatically put it in the cloud because they're moving everything to the cloud, right? So yeah. Okay.
But if you look in there, you'll see it
Oh,
says deploying the log collector on premise has been deprecated, blah, 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 blah. If you go through, you'll see it, and they recommend this. But if you have a need to say, no, I cannot put that in the cloud, you can open a support ticket and they'll expose the link that you can use to be able to download the bit so you can run it on Hyper-V, VM, or Docker.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
I didn't
Hmm.
know that. Interesting.
Yeah, I've had this thing run in my environment for a couple of years, man.
Do
This
you,
comes across, and the easy part about it, I'm struggling with getting the Meraki integration into Sentinel. You can fire up any of those log sources, log what do you call app connectors and log collectors. Any one of those come right in. Get it right in there. iBoss, Zscaler, all of that. So I thought about trying to use that to go around the way to do the other thing. It can't do it. It won't be able to do it. Someone recommended that. Big shout out to Drew Nichols, who at least was trying. He said, "Yeah, try this way." I said, "We think just alike, bro, but we cannot. They will not ingest the stuff from that." I'm like, "Well, if I can create the log collector here, it's basically the same thing. They're two different things. When you set it up in Sentinel, you actually get the logs, not just the alerts for Zscaler. If you do it that way, you only get the alerts. If you take it through MCAS or MDA. So a little tidbit for those out there if you're doing it. But
So
make sure yeah.
back to the exams. The SC 300 was actually updated not only for Azure roles, but also to include Defender for cloud apps. So there might actually have some of the log collector questions in there. I don't know, but definitely they're looking at identity and access management to your apps, and that's been included now in SC 300.
Well, Microsoft should accelerate their SESE solution or go buy somebody. We need our secure endpoint, right? That's what SASE, right? Secure access, secure endpoint. We got to get that going.
Sassy.
Yeah, somebody's got go. I think even Matt Sosman said, buy somebody. If you can't get it out quick enough,
Matt
they should've-
Sosman said that on a video. I could see that.
I
There's
think
a
so.
big table out there, and there's just a few things Microsoft doesn't play in, and Sassy is one of them. But I haven't looked at that in a little while. We would have been told about that if they were in that. But yeah, that's Secure Access Service Edge, I think it stands for.
Edge or endpoint? I think it's Edge.
It's Edge, yeah.
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 If I was in charge, if I was Microsoft, instead of go out trying to buy Discord and all this other shit, you should have just bought Zscaler.
I'm not representing the company on this statement, but you go on Zscaler's website a few times and it's like massive Microsoft integration promotion, their CEO, our CEO, they're hugging it out, kumbaya. It's like, this seems like it's a smart play. I am not Ann Johnson or anybody in charge of that, but it'd be interesting to see where that goes.
If Microsoft don't hurry up and buy them, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go into my 401k and just buy the company.
Yeah, do it 100%, Edward.
Yeah, I'm gonna leverage my assets in other companies because I don't have the real money to buy it. And then when I realize I'm gonna go broke because cryptocurrency is going down and I don't have any viable assets outside of my own stock in my company, Tesla, then I'll do it that way. How about that?
And someone's gonna buy Tesla in 5 years anyway.
Shout out to you, Elon. You want to borrow some money?
Shout out to
Call
you, Elon.
I got good rates.
Elon, come on the show.
Yeah, and if you don't pay Ed sends Rocco. I don't have time to go to court. Pay what you owe. I'll send Rocco over.
Long enough, it just becomes your offspring's problem anyway, right? So you could just.
And that's not a loan deferral. Frank and I are ancient. We ain't got much time left.
Ancient.
If you add me and Frank's body together, we might get one working human that's healthy. We're falling apart, man. Hey, let me tell you something. Aging gracefully, man, makes you appreciate a whole lot of stuff, man. So I'm enjoying it.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you.
I'm doing it. But hey, that's all that I had. I'm still learning. I'm doing some stuff. It's the time crunch was the stressor, but they got to have this done by a certain time. Just getting through the technology, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go learn it and put it on mine. Because if I blow my junk up, I don't care how. Boop. Spin up another VM. Try it again.
Whatever.
Yeah. But YouTube is your friend, so I'm gonna have YouTube up on the screen. You watch a little bit, then you pause it.
I wouldn't go that far saying YouTube's your friend, but that's okay.
When it's not your friend.
Has information.
YouTube can help make a dry multi-page article doable. When it comes
I just thought about who's good at this stuff. Gene.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. That's his thing. Syslog is his thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think to ping him. Let me ping him. Gene, you listen, come on the show, man. Come on out, spit out some fresh rhymes, man. The other one's getting sort of stale.
Have you ever been asked to set up a specific TLS bridge for Syslog before this? Okay. I was wondering if that was a requirement you've ever come across. I could see your on-prem MDA log collector for maybe like federal customers or somebody who have some sort of scenarios where they can't put certain things in the cloud. So that on its side, I was just wondering if you'd ever had to tunnel Syslog over TLS.
I get it. I get it.
Oh, I get it too. I mean, it's a secure tunnel for your logs. I get
it.
But
allow me to be the decision maker in what I need to encrypt that traffic or not. Don't lock me into your product by saying this is the only way. I'm like, let me accept the risk is what I'm saying. Let me go ahead and take 6 out, make it 514 TCP.
Or if you've got other complementary controls, right? If it's all on-prem, right, then it's that's fair.
I think you're right, Edward, in that maybe the Microsoft docs should actually have a section for that, for configuring that and that setup and the details. I think that would be great to have in the docs.
So one thing I did learn from Frank: don't complain in silence. Play it forward. I sent out to the product team. When you have those
Good man.
instructions to download that, have one that says syslog 6log over TLS, so you can download the bits. It's already there to go.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer, right? Just have it there, because they're going to have some occasion. You can see that it's not like a unique thing. All the major vendors that I showed, QRadar, Splunk, Cortex, all those say, hey, yeah, if you want to encrypt the traffic over, because they don't want to lose the business by saying, oh, you can't encrypt your log traffic. You got to have it. But trying to go in and then modifying a in-place syslog server to be able to accommodate this, not as gun ho like I used to be. Like, oh, I'll just bullet my way through it.
No. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that anyways because you're changing that configuration. That's not even a Sentinel thing. It's just best practices if you're doing
Yeah.
that for anything. So,
Well, I learned a lot. I learned a lot by I don't like VI, the editor in Linux. The better one is Nano.
just use
I,
Nano.
I lose Nano. I like Nano.
I
I don't
like
even use Netstat anymore. What's the replacement for Netstat in Linux? It has about 3 things
Oh,
that are
that's
missing.
yeah.
SS.
No,
Probably.
that's that. So I got to tell you, the editor I use most, except for configuration files in Linux, is VS Code.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love VS Code. Shout out VS Code, friend of my
So,
life. What a
VS
great
Code
editor.
it's the truth. It's yes. It's nothing like
so to get
Everybody here
around
should get
the
VS Code. Like dump Notepad++. I know it's awesome. Just dump it. Get VS Code. It's amazing. Like the integrated
Brody,
shell is awesome.
to get around the music infringement rights, maybe we should actually have a gardening party listening to your music in our Discord channel. How about that?
YouTube would pick it. Discord. That's actually, thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of DJs got shut down over COVID because of music infringement issues. You
Yeah,
just
so we just
remix
do it
those.
through Discord and talk
If you're
gardening
streaming,
and listen to your music. No, it's just not do
YouTube
a
and
stream, just
Discord
do it.
both have live stream monitoring algorithms to pick up when
Really?
copyrighted music is being played, and then they will
hmm
shut it down. Yeah, 100%.
I
And if
think
you go
it's
Stay
back
it.
and
with
watch the
inside the channel.
recording, they blank out that part. They'll mute it, and so it crushed DJs
So
over
like if
over
I'm just
COVID.
video sharing back and forth on Discord with you and I'm playing music in the background, they're going to shut me down.
If you put it on the platform as a recorded thing that you could
No, not a
potentially
recorded thing.
benefit
We're
from.
just going to, have a, just video sharing thing and gardening and listening to your music. So it's not going to be recorded anywhere. So
Frankly, you would think you
I don't
learned your
know.
lesson. You got us kicked off YouTube one time. Now you're gonna get us kicked off every platform out there. Nobody's gonna take our money. We're gonna have to host our stuff over in Russia, right?
hold on, hold on.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Whoa. All right. Well, unfortunately, Rod cannot check in with us. I was looking forward to seeing everyone in his talk there. So
hmm
he should be back next week.
So
And
we
are we Reactor next week?
are Reactor, and Red Canary / Atomic Red Team is gonna come on, demo some stuff, talk about their workbook for Sentinel. I'll get the information over to them. They were super happy. They thought we had decided not to let them come on. I was like, I wasn't sure, because that is a Microsoft thing. I don't know if they really jive with partners, but Rod cleared it. We're good to go. Be good to
By the
talk to the
way,
Red Canary guys again.
yes, it would. I'd love to see them again. I love the shirt that they sent. We've had some great comments in the Discord today. So Melinda just posted a link to one of Jing's videos about ingesting pfSense or syslog into Sentinel. So check that out. If you're listening here, we'll put it in the show notes. I'm not sure if it's specific to Edward's TLS Linux requirement, but a good resource nonetheless. And yeah, recently we had some folks talking at Microsoft folks at Black Hat and DEF CON, and
Mm-hmm.
Ursqui, I'm like Edward trying to pronounce a name here. I can't. I'm so sorry, sir, whose name I'm butchering or alias I'm butchering in Discord. But he's like, hey, it'd be great if we could get somebody on who presented at one of those conventions and talk about their experiences and recommended a few things. So if you're listening to this and you want to know what I'm talking about, hop on our Discord channel and check out those links that we'll put in the show notes.
So one thing we like to do is we're going to have a really good next 6 guests on the show. And as we blaze into the fall, so I'm excited about the guests that are coming on. We do like to share knowledge here. So the one takeaway I would take from everything we talked about today as we close the show: don't lie to your wife.
All right, next week.
Next week. All right, everybody be good.
Take care.
Oh man, good show.
Good. That was good. Yeah.
Miss old Rod.